Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Ginny, and today I am working with a collage sheet that I created to utilize some of the scraps that I've got accumulating from Halloween projects that I've been working on. So I very intentionally made this compatible with just about any color theme or different style of paper. So I wound up creating 3 projects this morning with that printable. And so I started with this card, which has that charming little kid on it. And I've added some pieced paper because I wanted this to be a scrap your stash project as well, so that I can go through some of that pile of the scraps on my table. So the first one is a card, and I've added some stickles to the image just to dress it up a little bit, and some handmade flowers and die cut. The second one is a tag. Once again, I'm going through my scraps. This is some larger pieces that I had on the table, and then I pieced it together on the back to create a nice background. And this Halloween image is pretty iconic, I think. It's very retro and vintage. And then this is what we are going to make today. This is a small wall hanging or a large tag, and I have layered up my patterns over a die cut shape so that I could get a nice wall hanging out of it. And I've used that printable for all of these projects. So let's make this one together. So the thought process behind the design of this collage sheet for Halloween is that I've been creating quite a few projects lately, and the scraps, or I like to call them offcuts, are starting to pile up. And you can see I've got quite a nice variety here. There's some purples and greens and oranges, obviously, that Halloween colors. But I want to be able to use these scraps on full-size projects. So what I want to do is create patchworks of them and combine them in such a way as that it's making nice backgrounds for the images. So I intentionally designed this set to be compatible with just about any pattern that you might find. So these are going to work great with all of those patterns that I just showed. And this is the full size printed just as it comes. This next one, I opened this in a Word document and then I scaled it down. So this is going to be perfect for smaller tags, and they are perfect for like A2 size cards or labels if you're making treats. So I've got mine printed for these projects in it's basically 3 by 2 inches, and that gives me a nice size for this kind of project. So this is going to be like a small wall hanging or a large tag. So it's basically Halloween decor. I've got a shape cut out from this die. It's a coved rectangle, and then it also has stitching. So I've got this centerpiece is going to be a cardstock that's 110 pounds. It's nice and sturdy, so you know that it's going to hold up well. And then I just chose this pattern out of the scrap pile because it was large enough to add as one piece. So for this side, I'm going to begin the patchwork. And by that, I just mean I'm just combining different patterns that I think go together to create a background to get this shape cut perfectly to coordinate with this. I just ran it through the die cut machine with the die, and then I'm just going to stack them right up. I also colored the edges with my Pitt Big Brush black marker so that the core wouldn't show. This is a sweet little stripe, and I wanted it to mix and match not only the patterns but also the scale so that it would not read as a very busy. So that is why I'm pulling this one in. This is a very, very small pattern, and for me it reads as a solid and a neutral in the background. So now you can see what we've done is we've covered this whole thing with different patterns, but it creates a background, and we've just used all of our scrap pieces and then created a nice design. So for this one, I'm going to add a couple of these pieces of doily. I cut that in half so that it wouldn't be hidden under the image. And I'm just going to add that with this very little bit of hot glue. I think this is, even though it's very vintagey, you could use these cut aparts with just about any paper collection because it's just sort of iconic Halloween images. There isn't anything like, you know, it's not age specific or anything like that. So you'll really be able to get a lot of use out of that. I'll leave a link in the description below for that printable. You can get it in the shop and it's an instant download so you can have it right away. And so this is a journal card that was in my stash. I've cut them all cut apart so that I can flip through. And I don't want to use it for this image, but I did like that it had a bit of a border, and so what I'm going to do is just utilize that outside. And before I get too much further, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to decorate the top. So this is my really reasonable ribbon trim, and I get it by the spool because I know I'm going to use it. So this is the black plaid, and it is 3/8 of an inch, so it's not quite ½ inch. I use the whole thing pretty much already. You can see that I really like this pattern, so I went ahead and got the whole spool. And I'm going to use this as a hanger. If you want to, you could punch holes here and loop it through, but I think this is not going to be very heavy, so I am confident that it will be held safely with a bit of hot glue. And I'm just going to place that here and then loop the other side around and add it to this corner. So that they're basically even. The bow itself will hide any raw edges that are left behind, and I just went ahead and tied some small double bows here. I get some comments sometimes about why my tails go up, and that is, I think, because I have added so much to the project that I just haven't left room for the tails not to be covering anything, so I just put my bow tails up, and that's just my style, but you do yours however you think works best for your projects. Here is another one over here. I have so many scraps, you guys. Like, I've not even gotten into our 13 days of Halloween projects yet, but I've just been working along as I am, you know, playing with the different collections and doing assignments. So I've just accumulated a lot of those offcuts. Now we can hang that with this little loop. That would be cute, hanging on a peg, if you have like a vintagey Halloween decor. Here is the image now. You can see that this is the size I chose, as opposed to the original, which was quite large, and then this one, which is even smaller. And I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with these, I think. I inked the edge again with my Pitt Big Brush marker. I added a clip here and then used some stickles to accent some of the different details. And then also I've got a cute little 31 that was printed on the image too. I put spacers on this, and then I notched out where the clip was going to be so that it would lay flat. So I just like that right here, and that's going to cover the red writing. I don't mind the black writing at all because it's sort of like typography sort of, and so that is okay. I've got a couple of vintage buttons that I found at that antique shop, and I've pulled these out specifically because they're very, very grungy, and I think that adds to the vintage, authentic vintageness of them. So I'm going to add those to the bottom, and I always tie string through because that is what is going to hold on to that glue. Otherwise you would be trying to adhere a non-porous material with hot glue, and that just doesn't really ever work super great. And so normally I would want to do 2, but since these are larger, or normally I would want to do 3, but since those are larger, I'm going to be happy with 2. And then here is some more use for my scraps. In our flower series, we did handmade flowers with the pattern papers that were created with the dies that are stacked up after they're shaped, and then I just added a little bit of a blingy center. So this is also scraps, and anything that will fit through your die cutting machine with your dies can be made into a flower. I would be aware that some patterns might be too large. For instance, this one, you're really going to lose what this pattern is about, so I wouldn't do that one, but for sure I would do that one, or most of these other ones would work great. So this one is in black, and then I've layered it with a couple of their sort of sheer on top. There's sort of a layer, and then there's bling in velvet, so they're quite fancy. This one has a little bling on top, and then some white flowers here that are from really reasonable ribbon, and I just flattened them out. They're the cherry blossom, and they're normally quite dimensional, but I smooshed them down because I wanted it to fit underneath those petals. So see, I'm going to add it right here with my hot glue. You could just as easily go with all store-bought flowers, but I think in the spirit of scrapping your stash, it does make sense if you can create the flowers that will coordinate perfectly. And if you're using Halloween papers, why not pull out the oranges and the blacks and create the different sizes that you can mix and match on your projects. So this is a very sweet, I don't know if I want to call it a large tag or a small wall hanging, but it's very vintagey and holiday inspired, and it's got the cute image. And so this is sort of, maybe I want to call that color blocking, where I've just got the strips of the scrap paper lined up there to create the background. I've also created a card. And so this is the same size image when I printed it. And so I've gone and done the same process more or less using the different scales and colors so that I can build up a background. And here's just another journal card for my stash. It wasn't, I think it had some vintage writing on the back again. And then this quick little tag, which is, this is one of the best vintagey Halloween owls I think out there. So I've got the back pieced more because I liked these patterns together, and that also adds to the sturdiness of the tag. So that is it for our Scrap Your Stash with the vintage Halloween cut-aparts. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye!